who were instrumental in loaning us the amo that we will be talking more about today from Tamapahore, so Ngāti nui. I'm going to take the chance to introduce Julie Paama-Pengelly. Julie has been at the forefront of development in Māori art since the 80s. I'm actually reading her Te Waka Toi nomination for an award that she won a couple of years ago for making a difference. She has pioneered the role of women as tāmoko practitioners and the entitlement of women to wear particular types of moko. She was commissioned alongside New Zealand's foremost tāmoko artists to perform her practice publicly at Te Tongarewa in 2004. As part of this commission, she tattooed 4 pūkoro on 2 women, Donna Leatherby and Jeanette McDonald-Rata. In 2010, Julie wrote the award-winning book Māori Art and Design for sale in the shop, the first comprehensive handbook on the subject. As chairperson of Te Tui Marikuia, she conceived Tuwhiwhia, the first annual World Indigenous Festival to connect mana whenua to the whakapapa of tāmoko, to the art practices of other Indigenous peoples, alongside the presentation of contemporary art practices. And she established our Toi Awards, of which each of our speakers have been recipients of over the years. Julie is also a member of Pukehou Marae, which is our Māori advisory group, and I just wish to acknowledge her, Pou Whenua, Rau Oriwa, Aroha Noa Matthews, and also Tui Rogers for their guidance that they provide us here at Toi Tauranga Art Gallery. I'm also going to hand over to you.
Well, good for that, Sonia. This is actually my show. This actually is in honour of Whakairo. Kia ora koutou, ka nui atu mihi kia koutou kia tātou katoa. Ko Julie Paama-Pengelly ahau, I mai Tuwhiwhia. I'm really honoured to be asked. I think, you know, one of the beautiful things that we have in a reconfigured Toi Tauranga space is that there feels like there's a bigger and better presence for mana whenua, and I'd just like to thank Sonia for honouring that with this series as a beginning. I feel really honoured to be in the room and allowing Dean Flavell to take his space as the tohunga Whakairo. I think that we have the privilege of knowing that he looks after our taonga on behalf of Tauranga, but to appreciate that we have someone from a Whakairo background that has that connection to our ancestral beings and our precious taonga, caring for those taonga is really something that, you know, I can't emphasise that we're so lucky to have. So I'd just like to welcome Dean this morning. I've said to Dean, you know, he has a presentation to Pūtiki or Te Whakairo Rākau. It's really about that wealth of history that we have, that wealth of experience in that art form. The po that keeps the taonga in here warm, from Tamapahore. But just to acknowledge that Dean has also carved this ancestor in Bay Park, right? So, you know, he has an intimate connection. So we have this taonga here to keep the taonga, the contemporary taonga warm, but we also have Dean's connection to this rohi. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dean to take the floor.
So just quickly, I'm Ngā Pūtiki, I'm Pūkenga, I'm Te Arawa, my Te Arawa side, Waitaha, and Tapuika. So Ngāti Whakaue, where everyone from Te Arawa is Ngāti Whakaue anyway, so you might make that up there. Today my kōrero was really about having a look at the legends that carvers are brought up hearing, seeing, those sorts of things, and then kind of going on a journey through time to where we are today. And so, I wanted to start with these words here. Te mahi whakairo, te mahi a rua. So the work of carving is the work of rua. Kei whea, ko wai ia, rua. Who is rua? So every carver at some time in his life, he is this kōrero. And so rua, who is rua? So we go back into a legend that's kind of survived time, etc. And we hear there's this man called Rua, Rua te Pupuke. Rua te Pupuke has a son called Manuruhi. Manuruhi has a son called Rua te Pukenga. So these are the three players in the story. And Manuruhi's child has an insatiable appetite for fish. And Dad can't keep up. Dad goes out every day, catches fish, brings it back. But Rua te Pukenga is so hungry, he eats all the kai. And so that puts pressure on Manuruhi. Manuruhi means exhausted bird, by the way. Manuruhi. So Manuruhi goes to his father, Rua te Pukenga, Rua te Pupuke, and says to him, Dad, how can you help me? My son is so hungry. So Rua te Pupuke decides, okay, I will make you a fish hook out of stone. And this fish hook comes with rules and tikanga. So he explains what that is, and then he says the name of this fish hook is Te Whatukura o Taonga. So there's something in there. And then he gives the rules on how to use the fish hook. But Manuruhi is too impatient. He's in his waka and he's out there. Because he has a starving child here. And so he fishes and he fishes and puts his first in, pulls it out, second, third, fourth. A whole waka full of fish. And then taonga ro. Now taonga ro is the atua of the moana. Taonga ro, it comes to his attention that there's somebody taking from his domain without any kind of asking. So taonga ro comes up, reaches it, pulls him into the ocean, changes his form, turns him into a teko, and places him at the apex of his house. Over time, Rua te Pupuke finds that the son is missing. So he goes out searching, and when he searches the ocean, he comes down into a village under the sea, a meeting house that belongs to Tongaru. And he noticed when he looks up, he identifies with the teko, and he knows that's his son, Manuruhi. And he has a look on the sides, and there are carvings in the porch, in the maho. He enters into the house, there are carvings on either side of the wharenui. These ones are conversing with the ones on this side, talking backwards and forwards. Rua te Pupuke asks, oh, who is this house? So he had told it, it's the house of Tongaroa. And so he decides that he's going to block up all the house, and then so that they sleep in the next day. The idea is that he wants to then take the carvings from. So he takes the teko, that's his son, Manuruhi. He takes the carvings from the porch, from the maho, and he gathers those up and he brings them back to this world and presents these as the carving, the models. So I don't want to go too much into what else happens, because that then leads into a whole lot of legends of origin with other things. But basically, that's the story that we hear as carvers when we're coming through. Now, if we are to, I just want to share another kōrero, this one here. Hei pupuri te aho o te wānanga hei kawe ngā pura huna a rua. So we have rua again. This translates to hold fast to the strands of valued learning. So from that story I've just told you, what are the valued strands of knowledge that came from that legend. Because as we know, all myths have a story, and they touch on certain parts. So what are the certain parts, what are the messages we hear in that story of Rua? So when we think back into that, we have Rua te Pūkenga, somebody who's keen, wants to know everything, or is hungry, or is hunger for knowledge. In there we also hear around a hook that is created to fish for knowledge. The name of that hook, Te Whatukura or Tongaru. Who is Whatukura? Whatukura is the male essence, it's a being of a group called the Pōtiki, who are guardians. They are created under the mantle of Io Matua. So they are the guardians, the Pōtiki. The male part of the Pōtiki are the Whatukura, the female part of the Pōtiki are the Māikura. They are the guardians of balance throughout the world. But the term Whatukura, other than that, also means the name of a stone for learning. Okay, so the Whatukura, when you're a trainee, the stone is placed into your mouth, Karakia has done. When you swallow, the saliva you're swallowing is the knowledge that's entering from the Karakia that's being done. Okay? So that's where the importance of the Whatukura. Whose knowledge is it? Tonga's. Now, I'll bring this up again later on. It's the knowledge of Tonga through the Whatukura. The other part of that, which is worth thinking about, is that the Whatukura, the male parts of the Pōtiki, they live in a whare nui, and the name of that whare nui is Rangi. Now for us who know of the journey from the islands, from Rangi or Raiatia, Tapuika, the journey here. So all of these names within there have connections. The other lesson we hear in that particular story of Rua te Pūpoke is that there was a hara, or mistakes were committed. And so the first mistake that Manuruhi committed was when fishing, he didn't ask for blessings. So the hook wasn't, there was no karakia done on the hook. And so unblessed. So everything that's unblessed is noa. And so that was the first thing. The second part of that was that when that hook was used, the first fish that was caught was not off the back. So there's no respect. So these are the values that the plain carvers need to have when being taught. Those are the values. So those are some of the stories that we hear there. We know of stories of rata, and when you cut down the tree and then instance of that, the birds put the tree back. Again, another example, karakia not being done. And so it's that respect aspect of it. So from this one here, the yaho. I just want to share again, in here we have the Whatukura or Tongaro, which I've kind of talked about. We talked about the the hara, and we talked about now, Rua. A rua is a vessel or a pit that holds and contains. So we usually hear the word rua with Pou Whenua and those sorts of things. But in this instance, the rua is you are all the rua. People, minds, thinking, that's the rua. And everyone holds knowledge. So it's the transfer of knowledge from one to another. The rua is simply the vessel. Then rua te Pūpoke, to rise up one subconsciousness affecting thought. Rua, easy if I can get off this one. Rua te mahara is the power of thinking and memory. Now, one of our colleagues, our Hitters, when he was carving, he told me a story when they were carving the wharenui for Tu Whare Toa. His job was to replicate another carving. So he told me he picked up the carving and moved it over to here, and I said, no. You need to study that, get that in here, and then go along and then carve it. Because that's that whole exercise of memory, those sorts of things. Rua i te kaihanga, the power and the knowledge to build, create, and construct. Rua i te Kōrero, to disseminate information. Rua te hiri, that's to desire. Rua te atamai is the beauty, to be able to create beauty from your art, from your thinking. Rua te parakore is an interesting one because as carvers, our chips that leave the timber are just as sacred as the finished product. And so we take care with those. Those chips are never used for cooking or anything else because they belong to the finished product here. So it's the sacredness of the leftover, the chips, the dust, all of that is carvers. And then Rua te Pukenga, and so we remember Rua te Pukenga is that child, that hungry child. And so the hungry child becomes now the repository of all that knowledge. It is the skilled practitioner. So for carvers, our aspiration goes towards Rua te Pukenga, to be that. Okay, so that's just an example of what the Kurokuna Rua is, the hidden school of Rua that carvers need to abide to. And I just thought I'd pop this one. This is the Field Museum over in Chicago. This is the house Rua te Pupoke, number 2. But it gives an idea of the whakairo that's gone into here. This came from the East Coast, I think Pukemaru Bay area it was carved in. So beautiful piece of work, beautiful exemplar for carvers who are practicing to be able to look at that. There are other exemplars around this country as well. So yeah, just wanted to share that. That's my museum side of me coming down here. But yeah.
Ooh, I can ask some questions. I just wanted to ask actually, because I remember learning a little bit about this piece. Do you know anything about that porch top there with the eyes? Do you know the naming of the porch top of the eyes?
Do you?
I think it was called Ngākaro or the Atua. Is that right? Yeah. Really distinctive pieces out there on the porch. Yeah. So
just for thing, I don't know if you remember Ngati. So Whenua was one of our local fellows here. He was part of the museum, but he was also a carver, but he was also an artist, more commonly known as DJ Professor, I think was his name. But when they were restoring this, when you went back, when you went over to be part of the team to do the restoration on that, and that was because of this pop-up to the wharenui.
So, kia ora for that whakapapa. Did you want me to ask some questions or do you want to keep going? Because what are your next slides?
Oh, okay, so
You talk about Polynesian hunger.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So when you talked about, you know, the whakapapa, the rua pūpiki whakapapa, what do you think is, and because I think a lot of people learn about the tangaroa and receiving and giving, what do you think is the most valuable lesson in that? I mean, obviously carvers take that whakapapa. What are we transposing today that is actually necessary? What's the continuation of that whakapapa that's necessary for whakairo to be whakairo, if you like?
Yeah, I think what we see here in this whakapapa is a way of layering things so that we understand. So it can be for stones, it can be for birds, animals, people, etc. It's a methodology on how we understand the process. I think with this one here, this can live in all people. It's around whether people acknowledge and know how to use this power. Because it's an internal power. And so that's why you get the likes of Lionels, who are really great at it, and then you get the likes of things. Who are so. No. But you get your different stages of people and their skill base, etc. So this whakapapa should sit with everyone. But as carvers, we keen to learn this as we go. So this isn't just a lesson where you go to the class and then it's given to you. This is a lifetime lesson. From when you first pick up your chisel to when you put it down over a lifetime. So these are the things that this is a method on how we can express those learnings. That answer.
Yeah.
I'll move on and say, because so I'm wanting to move from what we've just heard and then moving into physically how concrete. So this area here is the Paama-Pengelly. This is looking at the beginnings of our Whakairo, those sorts of things, and it's more that Polynesian connection that we have. So in a way, it's me kind of putting on my museum hat as well as my carver's hat, as well as my historical kind of interests. And so across the road there, we're building a new museum. And in that museum, one of the themes that we're developing is voyaging. And we're so lucky here in Tauranga that we have voyagers who live here. We have many voyagers who are still voyaging today. And so we have that to be able to draw down. And I always look for taonga that can tell that story of voyaging. And so this particular Rau Oriwa, this god stick, is in the Auckland Museum. I was up there 2 weeks ago to talk to the museum around how we negotiate to bring this home. And you might ask, home? And I mean, yes, home, because this particular piece is a representation of a Atua taonga. So any who have been to the islands, you'll see this everywhere, taonga. So that form was brought here. This particular taonga was found at Ngāti Point in our harbour, here in Tauranga. So in a way it kind of dates its age, where it's come from. So what intrigues me is that when our tupuna came from the islands to here and found this beautiful land, there were trees that they'd never seen the size of. But the knowledge that they had with them when they came here, they applied. And so this particular atua here is carved from kauri, timber from here. So it's that transition of knowledge being brought across the ocean and applied to a new world, full of new materials. Exciting. And then you draw back down into your tauranga, to your school of thoughts, and you apply those to your new world. Must have been exciting. Even in waka building is, you know, kind of is slat building in the islands to here. Amazing. That's mainly because of the trees, etc. that are available. So that's one example here. The second example I've chosen comes from this particular collection in Tauranga Moana. And this is a topa, a baila. When we got it carbon dated, carbon dating is taking the test of the timber to see how old it is. This dates back to the 15th century. It's made of pukatia. So, but the style that it's carved in is more Polynesian. The Whakairo, the markings on it are very simple, they're notches. But the handle itself is amazing in regards to how intricate and how light it is. So this is the knowledge that's come and applied, because this is not how we make tapa today. But this is the example. This was found at Pies Park Road up there. So for us here in Tauranga Moana, we know that's Tauranga. It's that area, you know, and this was found there. So another example, again, the timber is from this, the material is from this country, Pukatia. I just want to give another example here. We should be all familiar with this one. Whenua. So Whenua can take on different forms in regards to what it is, and so it can be the atua for war, it can be used in that sense, it can be used in the guardian of sacred knowledge. This particular one, which was found in the Waikato, is Tō Tauranga, but it's very Polynesian. Again, it's that knowledge being brought over and applied. And then we have Ngati, the adoption of that, tauranga, on top of Mauao, in the logo, in the identification of okay. So these things transgress through time, and we take them through time, because when we talk to the next generation, they hear it, they see it, they talk to the next generation, and this is how we talk about knowledge being handed down. And we see it here in an art form. Okay. So this is where I'm heading to, I suppose, for now. And that's the Pou Whenua, so the blossoming or the flourishing of the earth. So from the 1500s to the 1800s, this new knowledge of understanding the environment we're in, our materials, art just, whether it's Whakairo, Raranga, all of our arts, they just blossom. The influence of nature influenced our design, our thought, the way we move, etc. So this is the Pou Whenua, and this is my long journey to get to the young one of Tamapahore. So sorry about that, but this is the Pou that was here, and so at the opening for the reopening of the art gallery, there was a tono that could we provide a Pou. And so with the story of that Kiriama? Kiriama has done digitally in there, is probably the basis of why this particular Pou was chosen around being the Pou for all the arts that we're opening here. And so the Amo Tamapahore. So Tamapahore was a house of the 1800s. Its carver was Maihana Taukura. And so I think who was Ngā Pōtiki and Ngati. So I suppose I'm leaning more on the Mātātua side of Whakairo in regards to this year. Although we have strong Arawa links as well, I want to just concentrate more on Maihana. And so this is Cody, the timber. This kind of depicts the next generation. So when we see the head in this form here between the legs, it's the descendants of that ancestor. The patterns in here, Maihana used steel tools. And you can see the sharpness in the design here. So up on this design where he has the Pakiti and the high and the spiral up in here. The spiral is rodu. So for Mātātua, through whakapapa, rodu is seen as one of those original carvers. He's one of the original carvers of this land. And so patterns were being able to be created around what they saw again. So the rodu spiral with the Pakiti and the high, the lines. This one here is another popo. This is in the museum collection here of one of his works. So again, you see heavy in Pakiti and high. So the high are the lines, Pakiti are the notches here. You see a belly button here. So that's the detail of the carver highlighting that the belly button represents new life. And so it's considered important to put onto here. The hands as they come around and grab the kuku. We call that kuku tekune, to nurture. The spirals in here, this one here with the foot through the shoulder pattern. So you've got this one here, rodu. This one over here, Maui. So the Maui spiral. And what do we know about Maui? Do you know anything about Maui? Do you know Maui from Fishtub? Yeah. You fished up the North Island. Kikomo, the fish on Maui. In here, we see they come around here, the pattern, and then sweep back up here. So you see the hook in there. Maui, apparently hooks were like that. Maui invented the barb. That's what we hear in our legions. He got a piece of flax, tuned it over, said, put that on the end of your hook. That'll hold the fish. So from that to that, we have the barb. And so we record it in the Maui spiral. We have the there. Yeah. I just want to also share, this is some of the Maihana's mahi. This is a close-up of a pare that used to sit above the whare at Tamapahore. In this here, we see a story happening here. And so, if we were to look at along the bottom here where the Pakiti and high here are, and we consider, okay, that's something down low, then we have a look at the top along here, we consider, well, what could that be? And then we have a look at the heads protruding through, what could that be? So the story that comes to mind when we see this is this pai down the bottom here is a representation of Whakatūma. The line that runs across with the hands and the fingers reaching up, Rangi. these three people whose heads have protruded from. So, in the legend, what do we hear in the legend? In the legend, the world was like this. Sky and earth were together. Many children lived in that world. And then one child decided, oh, we need more room. And they pushed the sky up. So one of these fellas, probably the one in the middle, pushed it up. Hung him up. He's pushing up, and he got his others to help him push the sky up. So we had two mātaui who helped. And then we had one who didn't quite want to do that and opposed. And so that was Pukehou Marae, who sided more with his father. No, this is wrong. But we have three players in that story, the origin story. And so as they push the sky up, you love it here, the descent happens here, Tāne, two, and Pukehou Marae, and then we have these spirals. These spirals are called pakarangi. Paka, to fall from the rangi, to fall from the sky, to descend from the sky. Two pakarangi like this represents a time that was called the whaiao. The whaiao. So, te kore te pō. Whaiao kia mau. So this is our ancestor writing our history in wood. So that's some of the stories of that. Now for Maihama, his style, as you'll see out there, I don't need to talk, I think for Maihama, his style is out here in the gallery. But if you have a look at that style, and then you say, look at Whakairo Marae, you have a look at maybe Manapapa, you have a look at the Amos and compare them to this one. Very similar in construction. So we always, not always, we hear things like, oh, what style of whakairo is that? Oh, that's taonga. That there is Ngati, that is Waikato. Those styles that have become tribal styles started with an individual. That individual was so prolific in his art that the tribal style was originated from that person and has become. And so all the tauira, the students that have been trained from that person, continue to practice the tribal style. And so all of this, just leads back to the importance of knowledge, the rua, the school of knowledge, into an individual who then passes it on to the next generation. That's my once again. That's our way out. Oh, sorry, our way out kind of here. So, Tuwhiwhia, Whakairo, Tuwhiwhia, Wāmanga, Tuwhiwhia, Te Ata, Te Wharekura, Whāno, Harawaiti,
If you don't mind me asking a couple of questions, there is so much in there. Thank you so much, Dean. Can we just flip back to the just so people know, can you just explain what part the amo is on a whare?
Oh, sorry, yes. Sorry. So, when we look at the whare nui, and remember in the story, one ruhi was the tip of it, so we look at the whare nui and we see the carving right up the top. When we see the carving come down, the barge boards come down, those are the mighty. And then at the end of those mighty, we see this sort of form. the ropa. So those are the arms and the hands. And down. And then up on this side, either side of the wharenui are the uprights. Those are our amo. And then the amo turn in, and that's our haipai. So the whole structure of the wharenui is based on the human form. And including the inside. So as the backbone of the whare goes through is the tuara, and the Pōtiki manawa on the inside is the heart of the house. So the entire house is an ancestor, and hence why we have our names on our face, so that we know who they are. Yeah. The hands, the maiki and the ropa are, I suppose, encouraging. They help enforce the koranga. Welcome. So the kaitara will stand on one side of the one of the things with the Mātātua carver, and especially this particular carver, Mayana, and I've seen it repeated with other carvers, is just below the jaw. I haven't got a photo, I don't think I have. Just below the jaw, sometimes there's a knoll. A knoll, yeah. Like a lug just under the chin, on the neck. Sometimes there's two, sometimes there's one. When there's two, we have a bone here. We call it the paimanu, but it's the collarbone. It's the collarbone. It's the thing that holds our shoulders apart like this. And in between our collarbone, if you feel those planks or those bones there, that's what's being put here in carving. And you might say, well, you might think that's some good about that. It's from there is where the human body produces saliva, like the pukekura we put in the mouth, the swallowing of knowledge. So saliva, and carvers always carve the hupe in the nose, and then in the ear there's usually a little lung again, and there. So those are all biological, I suppose, human things, which represent the physical essence of what Māori and Wairua are. That's the importance of them showing up in whakairo. The idea we hear in the legend where one side talk to the other side, the carvings that were brought back to this world wouldn't talk, but carvers are always trying to get their carvings to talk, or get messages in a way. And then in the construction of wharenui, when the popo on this side is aligned to the popo over on this side, these two have to talk anyway, because there's a message going between them. Whether that's husband, wife, whether that's whananga, another whananga, then the kōwhaiwhai that comes up next to them. So there's always connectivity. So everything in the wharenui is talking, and if we can hear them, they're noisy, always talking, especially carved wharenui.
You led us on a real history lesson right from the arrival of Polynesian, that influence in the style, and then obviously early on stone tools, and then steel tools have allowed this to happen. I just want to talk a little bit about, because I think the whare itself, Tamapahore, was particularly important here because it marked a certain time in history when Māori were doing particular things here, in line with, colonisation. Just want to talk a little bit about the context of the wharenui then and who it hosted.
Yeah, the Tamapahore was a very important treatment for a start, but it's a house from the 1800s, the later part of the 1800s. For us here in Tauranga, we understand, we know the confiscations that happened. We know our lands were taken, all those sorts of things. Tamapahore is like that lighthouse that gave hope. Our Pūtiki are quite good at surviving and being able to utilise the whenua and those sorts of things for the benefit of the people. And so, Tamapahore used to stand at Karika, and when it was there, the Kōrero Ko opened. It was part of the opening of that. So that's the period of time that we were talking about. Things weren't so good for Māori then. So there was a struggle. Poor. Little resource. When your lands are taken from you, you have nothing. You adjust, and you adjust quickly. Our Pūtiki were able to adjust quickly. So it became the meeting house. So in a way, it's that whole idea of a whare tūpuna, a meeting house. So Tamapahore was extra large. It was larger than any houses that were there prior and that we had in the district, because it was an assembly place. It was a place for those who had lost everything to go to, and then talk about the future. How do we, what are the next steps, those sorts of things. And so it became important in that sense. And as we know for Tauranga, those links over to Tainui and Waikato became really strong, and we whakapapa for the marriages. And so then you had the Kinitanga coming over, and hui, when they'd come here, the hui were out of Karika. And so, and that's happened right through to even Tata, I think. They were able to, I think, express what was happening, and as artists, not only carvers, but as artists, we try to interpret those sorts of things in our arts and make our connections to them. And I think that's one of the important things around these whakairo from Tamapahore, is that they are living treasures of how things were at a particular time, and they help us connect to those things. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah, I think the historic context. So what does it mean to you then, I mean, personally, to realise finally these things are going to come out of storage and they're going to be in a context?
Oh, hey, look, 25 years ago, I used to work down at Pungarehu. I was working at Pungarehu Museum. I was my curator down there. And then I was up here doing kiwi fruit for one Christmas, up these ways, and I went back, and there was a letter on my desk that said, that they were building a museum here in Tauranga. Oh, there's my ticket home. So anyway, 25 years ago, the museum's only being done now. So for the museum, a little plaque for them. There's 2028 will be the opening of that, of the museum. So I came up from Honganui and had my interview, and I think Anton Coffin, you come with it? Anton was on the interviewing board, so anyway, we had our talk on that. And then I wanted to go out to where they were stored. When I went out there, it was down at Pine Street. and it was a warehouse. Across the road was the fisheries, and that's where you could smell it's just fish. And so I went and had a look, and I was looking around and I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? This is terrible. And then along the ground there, I said, oh, where are these carvings from? And that's when I was sort of Tamapahore. I can't say no. It would be wrong of me to say no, knowing that they're keeping this thing. So I said yes, 25 years now, but over that period of time, a lot of learning has happened, and working with our whānau with that, whether it's on marae, home with the taonga, those sorts of things for getting those taonga placed better in where they are now. So, yeah, it's been a long journey, but always worked well with it. As carvers, we will always continue regardless of what jobs we have. We usually, that's our weekends are all used up doing that sort of money. At the moment, a little plug of what we're doing at the moment, I'm working with Haimona Brown, who's a Tarai Waka builder, and so we're building River Waka down at Tapuika for the Kaituna River, and we're doing that with the young men. Young boys teaching them a skill, and that, so hopefully out of the 10 we get, we might get one who's interested, but that's the rationale. That is the rationale. Yeah, so, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful work you do. Be grateful that you stuck it out. For the love of this.
oh yeah. That's the requirement.
We might have time for a couple of questions. Does anyone wish to ask Dean any questions? Or yeah?
Is there any remnants from Otomotai Pa in the
Absolutely.
yeah?
Yeah. We hold the largest collection of taonga from Otomotai. I'll just do another plug for the museum. That is part of the story we'll tell. Otomotai is really important because not only because of its age as a pa and what happened there, but it's the place where two cultures actually meet. And so it's that expression around, you can just about imagine it. Imagine two different people kind of coming, oh, what are we doing, that sort of thing. And that's what's there at the moment. So some of the key taonga there is the peace stone. So the peace stone is in the museum. It's there for safety. Out at Otomotai is the tuki tree. The tuki tree itself is a story. If it could talk. Yeah. So there, and then archaeological material when Alistair Matheson, when he agreed that the house be removed, he did the archaeological bit over there, marto hooks, fishing hooks of all sizes. So yeah, and when you consider where it is and where it looks out into to Hawaii, yeah, it's very important.
Any other questions? One more? Yes.
Yeah, I was curious. It's really interesting seeing the other carvings by Mehan and Tapuika, and I know some of them will be part of like a opposite builder and flooding structure. But is there anything on the piece that kind of acts as like a signature showing this is by Mehan and Tapuika, or would they ever sort of make some sort of mark saying that this is their carving, or is that really something that's
Yeah, I think a lot of carvers put their mark in, whether it's in the actual pattern itself. I think Paturungu used to do a particular pakiti, he's a parawhai carver, so a lot of the carvers, they create these things. Sometimes it's just the style, you look at the style and you can straight away you know whose hand has been there. Good question.
Awesome. Well, kanami o ka mihi ki kia koe, Dean, mo te kōrero I tātanei. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom. In advance of the museum showing the whole wisdom, because we know a lot of the time you spend doing the work with the taonga and you don't get to share that. So we look forward to that. So I'd like to thank you very much. Koha, kia ora.
Kia ora, you've been amazing.
Just to total what George said, I think you've just whet our appetite just a little. We're hungry for more. I can't thank you enough. Much to take away and think about. As Dean mentioned, the Pou, the Amoa is back through the entrance as you go back out the art gallery. Please take some time to spend some time with it. And also download the app so you can access Whakairo by Kiriyama Taipa in the main space as well. You'll see that there's also a render, 3D printed render of Rua Te Puke is on this wall here as well as you're walking back out through the gallery. And also we have some essays, you'll see, pink, you can't miss them as you're leaving, and written by Carl Chittum, and he talks from a Ngāti Porou perspective about the story of Rua Te Puke in here as well. So please take one of these. If you have tamariki with you, or at home, we've also got, can you grab one here just from around the corner? We've got some really cool curiosity guides, which also from a activity perspective have some cool activities in here and talk about the Amoa as well. So on behalf of everybody here today, everybody online that I've just had my back to as well, sitting at home, kia ora. Thank you so much, Dean, for sharing your tauranga with us, and Jules for chairing this session as well. And don't worry, there's more at 1 o'clock in conversation, or Jules will be in conversation with Dr. Lionel Grant as well. So please go and grab a kai, come back, and we'll see you at 1 o'clock.